Scams. They're everywhere now. That sucks when you're having to make big life decisions. What car to buy, where to get a mortgage, whether or not to take out student loans. And for folks planning weddings, there's always this fear you're going to be the couple going viral for all the wrong reasons, getting scammed by some nightmare vendor. But what if I told you there aren't just scams targeting clients, but also targeting wedding vendors? Even if you had never planned a wedding, there's a chance you've heard of the Knot and Wedding Wire previously. These two merged in 2018 and are now private equity run by the same group that owns Doc Martens and Klarna. Now, if you're a couple using the site, you won't pay any fees. Instead, the vendors listing their services pay an advertising fee. And that seems pretty fair at first. Keep in mind that many vendors operate as sole proprietor LLCs without large budgets. Money is tight, and investments in the business need to pay off. This is especially true if your income supports a family. While the Knot promises hundreds of new leads, during my time as a vendor on the Knot, roughly 50% of all the inquiries I received were clearly bots or scammers attempting check cashing schemes. Now, the Knot Worldwide will swear up and down that they do not send fake leads, and they're actively working on the bot problem on their website. Them actually acknowledging that they had a bot problem and were working on it is what got me to sign up for them a second time, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is, I'm not accusing the Knot of lying, but I will also tell you that there have been reports of vendors calling wedding venues to check on the dates they're getting in leads, and venues reporting that they don't have a couple booked on that day. Other vendors have even reported that on consultation calls with clients, they've heard calls happening in the background like they were happening in a call center. The Knot Worldwide can just wave away allegations as the accounts of disgruntled employees or vendors who didn't make their profile stand out. I know they did that with me. The first thing you'll hear when you report your expectations not being met is a list of the things you can do to improve your listing. But there's something especially frustrating I haven't seen any news source mention. Maybe you're not getting the dozens of leads a month the Knot promised you, but maybe you're still getting exposed to your ideal clients. I have a handful of clients who found me through the LGBTQ owned filter that the Knot provides. So that could still work out as a net positive. I wish that was the case. This is still completely baffling to me. Both websites refuse to allow you to control the actual content of your profile. You can share whatever photos you like, but whatever copywriting and self-description you enter is actually ingested and then regurgitated onto your page in search engine optimization speak. Now, the Knot says that they have a crack team of copywriters working on these. I think they mentioned they were based in Ireland when I talked to them. But what they don't tell you is they don't allow you to waive this option in any way. The copy I use on my website reflects what I value: transparency, artistic enthusiasm, and a deep commitment to celebrating authenticity. It's that way because it's the first thing that I know clients will see about me, before even maybe some of my photographs. The Knot describes my business this way. Bowler Images is a professional photography studio capturing weddings across Richmond, Virginia in captivating ways. This memory-making enterprise is owned and run by Dan, an aficionado of all things film and photography, who loves to celebrate blissful new beginnings through the power of fine art. With a camera in one hand and a heart full of love for storytelling, Dan helps you and your sweetheart make memories that last a lifetime. At Bowler Images, Dan follows a photojournalistic style of photography. A fly on the wall at every festivity, he takes an unobtrusive approach to capturing the affection felt in those fleeting moments. Dan also loves nature, incorporating the incomparable beauty of Virginia's landscapes into each and every frame. In the end, you get all of your bowler memories crafted with the utmost care and delivered in digital files. You're more than welcome to share your pictures online, giving all the people you love a chance to partake in your I-dos. Dan also provides plush wedding albums, turning all your precious moments into timeless keepsakes you can treasure for life. To put it bluntly, there are multiple lies in that description. I very specifically am not a fly on the wall at weddings. It's something that all of my clients know going into the day. It's part of the reason they work with me. I try to get to know my clients, their families, their friends, by actually participating in the wedding. I don't wear all black. I'll joke and talk and tell stories of weddings past to folks as I work, and I genuinely try to form a connection. The idea is, if you know me as Dan, not the photographer, you won't be scared of asking me to take a picture of you and a loved one. maybe when a flash goes off and it catches them by surprise, they're not suddenly worried about avoiding my camera the rest of the night. They know me, and it sounds silly, but it works, and I love it because it means that I actually get to celebrate these days as part of them instead of just a fly on the wall. Which is why this makes me so angry. I could go line by line and explain why this copywriting sucks. Honestly, I think most folks can tell at face value that the writing just isn't personal. It not only feels sickeningly sweet, it also gives an impression that I'm more than a sole proprietor, which is completely disingenuous and not the kind of thing I like to do in my business. So here's the thing. I can't legally say these companies are scammers, but what I can say is that they have numerous former employees that have alleged they are defrauding vendors. They lock you into 1-year contracts that are inescapable, even when they aren't holding up their side of the bargain, and they only operate 2 separate brands to hide their monopolistic tendencies. There are plenty of services targeted at wedding vendors who can charge considerable rates for some sort of utility. But let's be real, if I pay less than $500 a year for a website that does gallery delivery, website construction, client intake, session scheduling, invoice processing, and print ordering, are you really telling me that I should be paying over 10 times that amount for being listed on a fake search engine? Which brings me to my story with The Knot. This is the section you should send to a friend if you know they're in the wedding industry, but especially if they're new to the wedding industry. When I was in school for my master's degree, I began photographing weddings on the side to help with rent payments. The COVID vaccine was very new, and my experience up to that point consisted of photographing small, socially distanced weddings, typically in backyards. I reached out to The Knot, and lucky for me, my local sales rep was willing to give me a prorated rate that would be the cost of listing for 6 months, as I wouldn't have the time for the business once I'd graduated. I got a few leads here and there, just enough to pay for the service, and a little more. Overall, I wasn't impressed with the service, especially as this is a lore drop I've saved. I used to be a criminal fraud investigator. I wasn't a cop. I never carried a gun. But I know scams. Here's a real story I experienced my first time with The Knot, and something I've seen spoken about frequently. I was contacted by a potential client who, before even having a consultation call, wanted to send me a check to, retain my services. That doesn't happen very often. Then the check that arrived was from completely unrelated person and was also for too much money. She said that her boss was making a contribution to the wedding in the form of paying for the photographer and the DJ, but he had accidentally only sent one check to me, the photographer. And then she asked me this: can you cash app the remainder of the check to the DJ? The check, of course, won't clear, and unaware vendors can wind up out thousands of dollars. Being who I was, I played dumb long enough to get the check so I could call the issuing bank and tell them which of their accounts had been compromised. But that was one of my first experiences on The Knot, and so many people have an identical experience. At that point in my life, I'd already been a fraud investigator for a year and a half. I knew what to look for. If I was another person, say a stay-at-home parent looking for a way to turn their hobby into a business, or a teacher who needs weekend and summer break work to stay afloat, would I have realized I was being lied to before it was too late? Hearing that The Knot was actively working to quash bots and scammers on their platform was the reason I returned as a client. I'd had to leave my 9-to-5 job as an investigator due to a family health crisis, and I needed an income while searching for my next move. By that point, I'd shot enough full-sized weddings that I thought, what the hell, it's the industry standard, let's take the plunge. You gotta spend money to make money, right? My experience was worse the second time around. I was introduced to the frustrations around control of your vendor profile that I just talked about. I was consistently getting leads that were fake, whether they were scammers or bots. I was also getting leads that were under the minimum value budgets I posted on my profile. And even when folks were real, it was a rarity that someone would actually book a consultation call. And then the health issues hit. Content warning for discussing suicidal ideation, but don't worry, this won't get overly heavy. In June of 2023, I came closer to suicide than I'd ever been before. I'd been job searching for about a year at that point, and despite my experience and degrees, I hadn't had a single request for an interview. My 26th birthday, which Americans will know is the hard cutoff for when you can benefit from a parent's health insurance, was fast approaching. And for some reason,
My psychiatrist had put me on a completely different class of medication than I'd been on previously. My depression and anxiety, which I'd struggled with my entire life but had managed with medication for almost 10 years at that point, was suddenly screaming in my ear at all times, every day. I couldn't get out of bed or see the point of trying anymore. I'd been rear-ended a few months earlier, which resulted in our car being totaled, and my anxiety was suddenly all-consuming while driving. My partner had to drive me to several shoots hours away because I was such a wreck behind the wheel. I was considering a psych ward stay for stabilization because, up to this point, I wasn't aware that the meds I was on were the things failing me. It was at this point that I scheduled an appointment with my Knot account manager. I explained, quite vulnerably, what was happening in my life and how, even if I was receiving leads from the Knot, I wouldn't be able to follow through with them until either a psych ward stay or several months of finding a new medication plan. I made it clear that I'd been fine paying for my contract and that I needed to pause it, renegotiate it, or delay it until the following year. I was told that nothing could be done. There was no consideration of even running things up the chain. It was extremely clear that the messaging from higher-ups was to not even entertain anything to do with cancellations or renegotiations. And then, to add insult to injury, the rep asked if they could go over my page and the ways I could improve it. I sat through her talking for the next 20 minutes about how I could just achieve my goals putting in a little more effort, and I made it clear to the rep that I needed my account marked for cancellation on the day my contract was through, which she acknowledged. And I got off the call, and I cried the rest of the afternoon about falling for this scam. I am so goddamn lucky, even if it doesn't sound like it. If I'd been anyone else in any other time, this could have taken me out permanently. My parents helped me cover the roughly $500 payments each month, which is an immense privilege that most folks in this country simply don't have access to. The Department of Education's income-driven repayment plans also meant that I wasn't on the hook for hundreds of dollars a month to pay for a degree that couldn't even get me an interview. Finally, in March of 2024, I was free. Or I thought I was, until I saw a billing for another month of the Knot. I got on the phone with the regional manager with all the indignation I could muster, and I made it clear that something was amiss. He told me that I had needed to provide a cancellation in writing and assured me that the rep I spoke with would have made this clear. His hands were tied. He had to bill me for the month-to-month contract I'd been auto-renewed into. I told him to go himself, paid that last bit of blood money, and sent the email that meant I was out for good. You gotta ask why I didn't close my bank account or cancel my card. I didn't want the fees I owed to balloon from legal fees. I also don't really use credit cards, so I was worried my credit score would just tank. So I sucked it up, made as much as I could to offset the cost, and I took the hit. Except I didn't really take the full hit. I had a family and support system that was able to help me soften the blow. Not everyone has that safety net. We live in a country that is so high on its sense of moral individualism that if you suggest something as simple as making school lunches free for children, you'll be called a communist nut job. I can't be your safety net, even though I want to be. I want my tax dollars to go towards fighting these scams and giving people a helping hand when they don't see how they can go on. But right now, that's not how our system works. So the best I can do is tell every person I possibly can to avoid the Knot like the plague. If you're a vendor, they will take your money and then make it next to impossible to actually get in touch with them. If you're planning a wedding, they will make the lives of your vendors miserable through practices that, frankly, are monopolistic. But you don't know how my story with the Knot ended yet. About a month ago, I got several voicemails and emails from a new sales rep assigned to my area. I'll leave you with what I said to her. Thanks for listening.
So I'm kind of wondering what notes the Knot has on me, like as a vendor, like from your side of things, like what notes are in my file, so to speak. So you haven't. It's not like the Knot is having you like follow up on an old client or anything like that. It's very nice of you to reach out. I took the appointment and I considered even just bailing on the appointment and things like that, and then I realized, it seemed like a kind of uncaring thing to do. This is me saying, to as much ability as you can, making sure the Knot never contacts me again. If you are new to the Knot, if you are getting in touch with me because you're new to the area, I am telling you right now, It is a despicable company, and if you continue working with them, you will just be ripping off solo entrepreneurs all over the country who are just trying to keep their roofs over their heads in one of the worst economies we have ever seen in this country. There's no malice in my heart towards you, but I do hope that you think on who you are selling to after you spend some time with this company.
Thank you for that advice. I will put you on the do not call list.
Thank you. Have a good day.